She doesn't talk to be liked, she talks to be remembered. You walk into a room, and without saying a word, every head turns. It's not by accident. It's because high-value women don't shout to be heard. They speak once, and the room listens. Their presence commands attention, not by volume, but by the energy they carry. It's not about what you say, darling. It's how you say it. Your voice is your brand. Your tone is your throne. And your silence, that's pure power. Imagine a woman who walks like she owns the air, not loud, not passive, just deliberate. She knows her worth, and it reflects in every movement. When she speaks, the world stops and listens because her words are measured like poetry, sharp like truth, soft like velvet. A high-value woman doesn't need to dominate a room with volume. Her presence is the volume. Now, let me break it down for you. It's not about talking more, it's about talking right. She enters the room, not in a rush, not seeking attention, but somehow everyone turns. The magic of a woman who talks slowly, with purpose, and owns every moment. Her voice isn't a race to be understood because she understands herself first. Talking slowly isn't just a style, it's a reflection of the empire she's built within. It says, I don't need to be understood because I already understand myself. It speaks volumes because her peace is her power. That calm, collected energy, it's one they can't see coming, but they feel it. When she speaks slowly, every word she utters carries weight. She doesn't fill silence with meaningless chatter, she owns it. Each pause is intentional, a statement. Every silence is a punctuation mark that makes her words feel deeper, more meaningful. You see, talking slowly is not a sign of hesitation. It's a symbol of control and confidence. Do you know who talks fast? The insecure, the uncertain, the ones trying to outrun judgment. They rush because they're desperate for validation. But the high-value woman, she walks through life with grace, not seeking approval, but commanding respect. Watch how she orders a coffee. She doesn't rush, doesn't repeat herself for reassurance. She says it once, politely and with presence, waiting, not impatiently, but with intention. Every moment, even the smallest one, reflects her standards. And it's not just what she says, it's what she doesn't say. When someone insults her, she doesn't snap back with a defensive outburst. Instead, she tilts her head, smiles faintly, and says, noted. That's it. One word spoken slowly, but it carries more power than a paragraph. It's a statement without a single argument. There was a girl in college who everyone underestimated. She didn't speak much in group projects, but when she did, it was soft, slow, and concise. People thought she wasn't smart until presentation day. She walked to the front, took her time setting up, looked the panel in the eye, and delivered a slow, steady, stunning presentation, no fluff, no filler, just facts, vision, and calm energy. And the whole class speechless. Every time she speaks, she's telling the world, I am not in a hurry to prove who I am. I've already proven it to myself. She doesn't need to dominate the conversation. She doesn't need to be the loudest in the room to be heard. The truth is, high-value women speak slowly because they are confident in their voice, their message, and themselves. Imagine her in an interview. She takes her time with every response, and it's not about speed. It's about the clarity and power behind every word. In friendships, she's the one who listens more than she speaks. When someone shares their problems, she doesn't rush to fix things. She pauses, reflects, and then responds with such depth that people are left thinking long after the conversation ends. In love, she doesn't rush into words either. She knows that when a man hears her speak, he feels it, not because she's trying to make him listen, but because her words arrive slowly, with intent, and leave a lasting impression. Every conversation with her becomes a moment of reflection. It's a subtle reminder: when you talk slowly, you become a better listener. You start noticing things that others miss. You hear the unspoken, feel the unexpressed, and that is power. Even on social media, when she posts a voice note, a reel, or a story, her slow, steady voice feels grounded and real. It's the difference between being heard and being felt. While others scream to be noticed, she whispers to be remembered. Her calmness doesn't just command attention, It demands respect. What makes a high-value woman unforgettable is not only what she says, but what she doesn't say. She knows that silence can be just as powerful, if not more, than words. When someone insults her, she doesn't retaliate. She doesn't engage in petty arguments. Instead, she simply smiles, raises an eyebrow, and leaves it at that. Her silence says everything that needs to be said. This woman doesn't need to argue to win. She knows that her power lies in her ability to remain calm and collected, no matter the situation. Imagine this: someone tries to make her feel small, tries to provoke her. Instead of jumping into the chaos, she stands still, composed and unbothered. She doesn't react, she responds. And that response is always measured, thoughtful, and impactful. When she speaks, her words come with purpose. But when she chooses silence, it's equally purposeful. In relationships, this woman doesn't feel the need to over-explain her feelings. She doesn't chase after answers or validation. When someone questions her actions or decisions, she simply asks, "Why do you think that?" One question, spoken slowly, can shift the entire dynamic. It doesn't invite drama, it invites reflection. And here's the secret: people can't argue with silence. They can't twist it, misinterpret it, or dilute its power. Silence forces people to confront their own assumptions, their own beliefs. It's a subtle yet powerful way of controlling the room. Without saying a word, this is where true strength lies. Not in filling the air with noise, but in mastering the moments of stillness. The high-value woman knows that true influence doesn't come from speaking quickly or loudly. It comes from speaking with intention. Every pause she takes, every moment of silence between her words, adds depth and gravity to her presence. While others scramble to fill every gap in conversation, she allows space to breathe, knowing that silence itself carries meaning. She's not afraid of the quiet. In fact, she uses it to her advantage. When she speaks, there's a rhythm to her words, a flow that feels deliberate, never rushed. In meetings, she doesn't feel the need to speak first. She watches, listens, and lets the noise settle. Only when she feels her words will have the most impact does she speak slowly, thoughtfully, with precision. And when she does, the room listens. Her words don't need to be repeated. They resonate because she allowed the silence to build anticipation. In friendships, too, she's the one who knows when to listen and when to respond. While others may offer advice without being asked, she waits. When she speaks, it's not a quick fix. It's a carefully considered response that resonates deeply. Her words have weight because they're not scattered or filled with unnecessary chatter. She doesn't need to say everything. She knows that what's left unsaid often speaks the loudest. Her calmness doesn't just command respect. It creates an atmosphere of peace and trust. The more she speaks with purpose, the more her presence grows. People are drawn to her because she offers them something rare as space, clarity, and a sense of stillness that's hard to find in a world filled with noise. A high-value woman doesn't need to fill every moment with words to prove her worth. She knows that silence is not a void, but a space filled with potential. In a world where everyone is trying to be heard, she stands out by being comfortable with the quiet. This comfort doesn't come from fear of judgment, but from the deep understanding that silence is an expression of power. It's a tool she wields with purpose, and it speaks volumes. Take a moment to observe a high-value woman in any setting, whether it's at work, at a social gathering, or even in a simple conversation. Her silence isn't awkward, it's intentional. It doesn't need to be explained because she knows that her presence is enough. She doesn't need to rush to fill the air with her voice. She lets her calm energy speak for itself. In love, this silence creates depth. It's not an absence of connection, but an invitation for more. When someone tries to provoke her or push her for answers, she doesn't fold under pressure. She doesn't give them the satisfaction of a defensive response. Instead, she lets her silence communicate everything. Her strength lies not in the words she speaks, but in the words she doesn't. When others are quick to explain, to justify, to defend, she simply remains poised. She doesn't feel the need to apologize for her boundaries or for choosing herself. There's strength in restraint, and this woman knows it. When people question her choices, her actions, or her beliefs, she doesn't dive into long-winded explanations. She doesn't beg for approval. Instead, she answers with confidence and clarity, knowing that her worth is self-evident. People often confuse loudness with strength, but loudness is not a sign of power. It's a sign of insecurity. A high-value woman doesn't need to shout to be heard. She knows that strength doesn't need to announce itself. It simply is. Her energy, her presence, her stillness are enough. When she speaks, it's with purpose. When she remains silent, it's with intention. In arguments, she doesn't raise her voice to win. Instead, she lowers her tone, speaks slowly, and says just enough to make her point. There's no drama, no chaos, just a calm, unwavering presence that forces others to listen, to reflect, and to respect. Her silence is not empty, it's a message in itself. A high-value woman knows that her energy is sacred. She doesn't waste it on people who don't deserve it. She doesn't engage in petty drama, gossip, or unnecessary conflicts. She reserves her energy for things that align with her values, for people who respect her boundaries, and for pursuits that bring her fulfillment. She understands that energy is contagious. When she enters a room, the energy shifts. Not because she's trying to control it, but because she has mastered her own energy. It's this mastery that makes her magnetic. People are drawn to her not because she's loud or boastful, but because her presence is calm, centered, and full of purpose. In her personal relationships, she doesn't chase after anyone. She doesn't beg for attention or validation. If someone wants to be in her life, they must meet her standards. And those standards aren't just about respect, they're about mutual growth. She doesn't settle for less than she deserves because she knows her worth. She's not afraid to walk away from situations that drain her energy. Instead, she protects it fiercely, knowing that it's her most valuable asset. There's a quiet strength in the high-value woman's ability to withhold her words. It's a strategic choice, one that sends a message louder than any argument could. When people try to corner her with questions or push her into a response, she doesn't flinch. She doesn't feel the need to answer every question or explain herself. She simply looks at them, maybe raises an eyebrow and waits. This silence isn't a sign of uncertainty. It's a sign of control. It's a reminder that she doesn't need to justify her existence, her choices, or her boundaries. Her silence forces others to confront their own assumptions. It invites them to think, to question, and to reflect. And in that moment, she holds the power. Whether it's in a meeting, at a dinner table, or in a personal conversation, the high-value woman knows that sometimes the most powerful statement is made not with words, but with the absence of them. Her silence creates space for others to reflect, to reconsider, and to realize that their words are not as important as her peace. A high-value woman leads without demanding it. She doesn't chase after power. She commands it through her actions, her energy, and the way she carries herself. In leadership, she doesn't need to shout orders or make grand speeches. Her leadership comes from quiet strength, from the way she listens, from the way she makes others feel seen and heard. She leads with empathy and understanding. When someone is struggling, she doesn't offer hollow advice. She asks questions that make them think, that encourage them to find their own solutions. In the workplace, she doesn't need to dominate discussions to get her point across. She knows that true leadership isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about creating a space where others can contribute, where ideas can flow freely, and where everyone feels valued. Her leadership is grounded in respect, not authority. She doesn't need to prove herself to anyone. She simply shows up, speaks with purpose, and lets her actions do the talking. A high-value woman knows that her worth is inherent. She doesn't need to seek validation from others because she validates herself first. When others try to diminish her value, she remains unmoved. She understands that people's opinions are reflections of their own beliefs, not a measure of her true worth. She doesn't internalize their judgments. She simply keeps walking in her own truth. She doesn't chase compliments. She doesn't seek approval or recognition. She already knows she is worthy. And this knowing, this quiet, unshakable belief in her own value, is what sets her apart. It's what makes her presence so magnetic. She walks into a room, and people notice not because she's trying to be seen, but because she radiates confidence that comes from deep within. In every aspect of her life, she operates from a place of self-respect. She knows her boundaries, and she honors them without explanation. When someone disrespects her, she doesn't need to raise her voice. She simply removes herself from the situation, knowing that her peace is more important than any temporary confrontation. It's easy to mistake silence for weakness, but a high-value woman understands that silence is one of her greatest strengths. She doesn't feel the need to fill every space with words, especially when they hold no value. She understands that speaking just to speak is a waste of energy, and she guards her words carefully. When she speaks, it's with purpose. When she remains silent, it's with even more intention. Silence doesn't mean she's afraid to speak. It means she's chosen not to. And that choice, that restraint, sends a clear message. In conversations, she doesn't feel the need to explain herself, to defend her actions, or to justify her decisions. She doesn't owe anyone an explanation. Her presence alone speaks volumes. Even in difficult situations, when people try to provoke her or force her into a response, she remains calm. She doesn't take the bait. Instead, she lets her silence do the talking. Her composure in the face of chaos is what makes her truly powerful. There's a quiet magic in a high-value woman's gaze. When she looks at someone, she doesn't just look at them with her eyes, she looks into their soul. Her eye contact is unwavering, confident, and intentional. It's not a stare, but a connection. It's a silent exchange that says, I see you, I understand you, but I won't be moved by you. In every conversation, her eyes carry more weight than her words. People feel seen when she looks at them. They feel acknowledged, understood, and respected. And in return, they can't help but respect her. It's not about intimidation. It's about authenticity. When she locks eyes with someone, it's as though the world around them disappears. It's just her, and it's magnetic. A high-value woman doesn't need to shout her confidence from the rooftops. She wears it like a quiet, invisible armor. It's not in the loudness of her voice, but in the strength of her presence. She doesn't need to prove herself to anyone because her confidence is rooted in who she is, not what others think of her. When she walks into a room, it's not because she's trying to stand out. It's because she knows her worth. She doesn't need to announce her entrance. People notice her because of the way she carries herself. She doesn't look for attention, she commands it. This confidence isn't arrogance. It's quiet assurance. It's the kind of confidence that makes others feel safe in her presence, not intimidated. She doesn't seek validation because she is her own source of validation. And that, my friend, is the secret to being truly unforgettable. A high-value woman doesn't have to choose between being witty or wise. She is both. She knows how to blend humor and insight in a way that leaves people laughing, thinking, and reflecting all at once. Her humor isn't just for entertainment. It carries truth. Every joke she cracks, every witty remark she makes, is a moment of wisdom wrapped in a smile. This balance between wit and wisdom makes her captivating. She doesn't need to prove she's smart because her intelligence is evident in everything she says. And she doesn't need to prove she's funny either. Her humor flows naturally, effortlessly, with just the right touch of edge. When she speaks, people listen, not just to her words, but to the deeper meaning behind them. She doesn't have to preach to get her point across. She simply speaks, and people are drawn to her, captivated by her authenticity and the depth of her words. A high-value woman understands the importance of boundaries. She doesn't let people walk over her, and she doesn't allow anyone to take more than they give. She knows that setting boundaries is a form of self-respect, and she never apologizes for protecting her energy. When someone crosses a boundary, she doesn't explode in anger or frustration. Instead, she calmly enforces it. She communicates her needs with clarity and firmness, without guilt or hesitation. And if someone refuses to respect those boundaries, she simply walks away because she knows her peace is far more valuable than anyone's company. In her personal life, her boundaries are not negotiable. She doesn't entertain toxic relationships or situations that drain her. She knows that to be her best self, she must prioritize her emotional and mental well-being. And those who truly care for her will respect and honor those boundaries. The high-value woman doesn't seek leadership, she embodies it. She leads not through force, but through example. She doesn't need to make speeches or demand attention. Her leadership is in the way she listens, the way she empowers others, and the way she remains steady even in the face of adversity. In meetings, she doesn't dominate the conversation. She listens carefully, speaks thoughtfully, and contributes when it's necessary. Her words are measured, deliberate, and always impactful. People follow her not because she demands it, but because they trust her. They trust her judgment, her integrity, and her ability to remain calm under pressure. Her leadership doesn't scream, it whispers, it inspires, and it leaves a lasting impression on everyone who encounters it. A high-value woman doesn't just talk the talk, she walks the walk. She doesn't live by the standards set by others. She lives in alignment with her own values and beliefs. Every decision she makes, every action she takes, is rooted in her truth. She doesn't make choices based on fear or outside pressure. She makes them based on what feels right for her, what aligns with her purpose, and what serves her highest good. This alignment is what makes her energy so magnetic. People are drawn to her not because she's trying to fit in, but because she stands firm in her truth. In relationships, in career, in life, she doesn't compromise who she is for anyone. She knows that when you live in alignment with yourself, you attract the people and opportunities that resonate with your soul. And that's where true power lies. A high-value woman knows that there is power in mystery. She doesn't reveal all of herself at once. She doesn't need to explain every detail of her life, her thoughts, or her past. Instead, she lets people wonder. She understands that intrigue is an essential part of her charm. She leaves enough room for others to question, to explore, and to imagine. This mystery isn't about hiding who she is. It's about letting people discover her at their own pace. She knows that when you reveal too much, too soon, you lose your allure. But when you keep certain things to yourself, people become fascinated. They're drawn in by your depth, your complexity, and your ability to keep a piece of yourself hidden. And that mystery is what makes her unforgettable. A high-value woman doesn't waste time. She understands that time is her most precious resource. She doesn't let others waste it, and she doesn't waste it herself. She is intentional with how she spends her time, ensuring that it's spent on things that align with her values and her goals. She doesn't entertain drama, distractions, or unnecessary obligations. She doesn't say yes to things just to please others. Instead, she says yes to things that will help her grow, things that bring her peace, and things that align with her purpose. Her time is valuable, and she guards it fiercely. When she gives it to someone, it's because she chooses to, not because she has to. And anyone who gets her time knows it's a privilege, not a guarantee. A high-value woman lives with integrity. She doesn't compromise her values for convenience, popularity, or gain. She is true to herself, even when it's difficult or unpopular. In her actions, in her words, in her choices, she lives authentically. She doesn't fake it or pretend to be something she's not. What you see is what you get, and what you get is real. Her integrity is her foundation. It's what makes her trustworthy, reliable, and respected. She doesn't need to prove her worth to anyone because her actions speak louder than words ever could. And those who are lucky enough to be in her life know that they can count on her, not just in good times, but when things get tough too. The most powerful women know that silence is one of the most strategic tools they can use. Silence isn't a void. It's a powerful weapon. It forces people to pause, reflect, and reconsider their assumptions. When others talk too much, they give away their power. But when you remain silent, you hold your power. People begin to wonder what you're thinking, why you're not reacting, what's going on in your mind. And in that wondering, they start to respect you more. Silence isn't weakness. It's a conscious choice to withhold your energy until it's needed. And when a high-value woman speaks, everyone listens, because they know she's only speaking when it matters. A high-value woman doesn't need to justify herself or explain her actions. She knows that actions speak louder than words. She doesn't make excuses, she makes results. When she says she's going to do something, she does it. When she makes a promise, she keeps it. Her word is her bond, and that's what makes her trustworthy and respected. She doesn't need to explain her decisions to others. She makes them, and she moves forward. Those who are meant to understand will. The rest will follow, or they'll be left behind. A high-value woman walks in her own power. She doesn't need anyone's permission to be who she is. She doesn't wait for others to validate her choices, her path, or her purpose. She knows her worth and she owns it. Every step she takes is filled with intention. Every decision she makes is a reflection of her inner strength. She doesn't need external validation to feel powerful because she already knows that power comes from within. And when she walks into a room, people notice. Not because she's trying to impress them, but because her energy speaks for itself. A high-value woman doesn't talk to be liked. She talks to be remembered. Her words carry weight, her silence commands respect, and her presence shifts the atmosphere of any room. She doesn't need to prove herself to anyone. She simply is. If you want to embody this, start by embracing your own power. Stop over-explaining. Stop justifying. Start owning who you are. Speak less, but make every word count. And remember, it's not about impressing others. It's about expressing yourself with authenticity, clarity, and strength. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more empowering content like this.